We're back with Matt Fowles, the owner of Fowles Winery in the Strathbogie Ranges. Now, Matt, we've got two of your wines here today. Tell me a bit first about the Strathbogie Ranges. I think there's a lot of granite there. Maybe tell me about the climate and how the granite or the soil affects the style of wine that you create.
So the Strathbogies are right down in the southeast corner of Australia, and it's actually a long way south of South Australia, which is where a lot of the wines in Canada have come from historically. And being south in our hemisphere, that actually means it's cooler. And then in the case of the Strathbogie Ranges, we're actually on a mountain range. It's a thing called a massif, MASSIF, and so very elevated and actually up near our snowfields. So it's properly a cool region, and cool regions, cool climate wines generally have a more gradual track to ripening, and it allows them to accumulate intensity of aroma and flavour and so on. And in the case of our region, you're right, it's full of granite, and we have these enormous granite boulders as big as a house, absolutely huge, dotted through our landscape. It's absolutely extraordinary, beautiful place. And the soil that we grow our vines is in this decomposed granite, and it's very nutrient poor. Water seeps out very quickly. And as a result, the vines really struggle. And when they struggle, they put their means of survival into their future, and that is the seed and the grape. And so we, because of both the climate and this particular attributes, the granite-based soil, we get this great intensity in the wines.
Terrific. And that presumably is why you named the Stone Dwellers, this bottle, after the land.
Exactly
correct?
Right. And it even depicts the topographic map of our region on the bottle.
Oh, okay. Is that what that was? I thought it was a graphic designer gone wild or something, but okay, got it.
If you look closely, it even has my house and the winery on it, so there you go.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Who needs Google Maps? Okay. Now, before we taste this Ladies Who Shoot Their Lunch, I was also reading something interesting. You were saying that when you were cooking or eating wild game, the flavor comes through the flesh, not the fat. And what's the difference there? Like, is it just intensity, or what's happening there?
Yeah, it's a very good question. The flavor actually resides in the flesh of all meat, and fat is the conduit to your taste buds. So fat lubricates the palate and allows you to taste flavour, and that's why people often think fatty foods taste good and low-fat foods don't. But I guess what I mean in that comment also is that the intensity of game, it's allowed to the animals are growing slowly and without other inputs, so it accumulates intensity over time in the same way that cool climate grapes do. So yeah, it just adds there's a richness and intensity that comes with it.
Yeah, I like the parallel that you're making with the grapes. It's a good tie-in. And the other thing you mentioned, it depends on what they're fed on. So, for example, rabbits or hares, if they're, I don't know, eating wild grasses as opposed to something else, you're going to get different flavors?
Totally, and textures, and that texture is really important as well. They're eating these wild herbs and grasses, and it's lower energy inputs, and as a result, they have less fat in their meat. And that modifies the texture and the feeling of the meat in your mouth. So, and also I've got to say there's this density with wild meat. So it can be quite challenging to your palate at times. And so we're very conscious when we make the Ladies Who Shoot Their Lunch that we don't want a texture that will overwhelm your palate when it's already being challenged, perhaps by wild meat.
Okay, enough thirsty talk.
Yeah.
Let's taste. Have you got a bottle there close to you?
I sure do. Here it is.
Right. Okay, terrific. Let's give this wild wine a shot. This came out recently in our local liquor stores, and I must say it's terrific. Very very well made. I'm trying to recall. It was in the 90s. I know that I scored it. But tell me what you get from this. Describe this wine
again. For me, the aromatics are really important, and so when I am tasting this wine with people, I hope they get that very quick flush of aroma. And in the case of the 2009, we have a little parcel of co-fermented Shiraz and Viognier that we've blended to help bolster that aroma.
Okay, so the Viognier is lifting it the Shiraz flavors.
Correct. And when we're thinking of a wine in the context of game, that's something that's really important to the wine.
Okay. And how do you keep the texture not too heavy, too overwhelming? Because Shiraz, a lot of us, at least in North America, think of it as always a very big wine.
Yeah, so partly a feature of the climate we live in and grow our grapes in,
Right.
but also we age it in these 140-year-old English oak casks, and they're actually old port casks, so they're beautiful big vessels, big enough that I can stand up in them, and I'm a tall bloke. And so what happens is the tannin actually forms up into chains and falls out of the wine, and there's this softening of texture that goes on while we're maturing the wines in these vessels. So that's one of the things, and there's so many things that contribute to it, but that's probably the key one.
Okay, great. And for this one, is there a lot of variation from year to year, do you find, or is it a fairly consistent signature through the wines through the years?
There's definitely seasonal to seasonal variation. It's something I think should be celebrated in wine. We really like the interest that comes with that. You know, at the end of the day, the grapes are a vessel of history, and they can tell you with extraordinary precision where it came from and the season, what the season was like, even after the fact. So we want some of that story to be in our wines. But actually, in the case of these food wines that we're making, we will, I'll say, manipulate them a little bit or craft them a little bit more so that they are consistent and so that they do the job of blending a wine to match with game meat.
Terrific. Okay. So describe one of your favorite dishes to pair with ladies who shoot their lunch.
Without a doubt, it's an easy one. Ladies who shoot their lunch Shiraz with hare, and hare is a misunderstood animal. People think of it as a rabbit, and it's not. It's anything but. It lives above the ground, and it's got this extraordinary deep, rich red meat. As opposed to rabbit, which is white meat, and it's got this flavour all its own, a bit like the funky comment that I had with wild ferment. It's just got this beautiful funky flavour, and I love it.
Huh. What do you do with hare? Do you is it a stew, or how do you prepare it?
Yeah, because the texture of wild meat's challenging, you do have to be careful how you prepare it. So I might remove the back straps from the hare and pan fry them with fresh herbs, and local olive oil would be the way I typically do it. But then for the muscles that work harder, generally texturally they're a bit tougher, so you might take those away. And then my favourite dish to cook is a rillette, and then also a stew. Yeah, a nice hearty stew in the middle of winter couldn't be better. Wow,
that sounds great. Have you ever cooked out in the wild, like after you've hunted for something and then just cooked it on a campfire or something?
Yeah, absolutely. But, you've got to be so careful with wild meat because it's a bit like seafood. You have to cook it fast or slow, and it doesn't take much for us to get it wrong. So you've got to be, it's much easier in your own kitchen where you've got the, those finer instruments, I guess.
That's terrific. So what's next for you, Matt? Wine-wise or project-wise, what's on your radar?
We've got a cool project at the moment. I'm calling it the Truly Wild Ferment. So there's a bit of conjecture in the wine world about whether wild yeast is truly wild, because typically the ferments will run in the winery and commercial yeast may populate that ferment. So we're actually running a ferment out in the vineyard. Now, all the literature we read suggested it wouldn't work, and we surmised that one of the things we need to do is control the temperature of the ferment. So instead of rigging up a chilling system, we've actually built flotation around our ferment vessel, and we're floating it in our dam, which is our water storage for the vineyard. So hopefully we'll have a damn fine wine coming out of this project.
There's your name for your wine, a damn fine wine. Oh, I love it. Wow, that sounds interesting. And when do you expect to have the first bottling of that?
So we did our first, playing around trial this year, and we're going to do a bigger trial this year coming. So it'll be a couple of years.
Terrific. Ever thought about having like a gift pack, rifle and wine or something? I did notice on your site, though, you have packs of wine that are in a rifle case, right?
Yeah, so they're modelled off an old shotgun case, actually, and my wife is who designs the labels, was able to cut it into a cardboard box, and we present our wine like that all over the world.
Wow, That's to die for, literally. No, this is terrific. Great chat, Matt. I love the information, the background on the pairing of the wild meats with your wines. I wish you all the best. I'm looking
Thank
forward
you.
to trying this wine vintage after vintage because it's just a name you can't forget. So, congratulations and keep up the good work and enjoy your trip here in Canada.
Thank you. Thank you very much.